There are days in history, days so heavy, so soul-breaking, that even time itself slows down in silence. One such day unfolded under a blistering sun, in the heart of Burkina Faso, when a child cried, and Ibrahim Traoré answered, alone. The sun had barely risen. Smoke curled in the sky above the remote village of Sampu. Once quiet, now choking on fear, militants had descended like vultures, tearing through the land, leaving silence where there once was laughter. Among the debris of a burnt hut lay a small child, barely 5 years old. Her name was Adama. She was wounded, trembling, half buried beneath rubble. Her cries were hoarse, her eyes wide open but fading. Her parents were gone, her village in ruins, and no one was coming. No one, except him. Miles away in Ouagadougou, President Ibrahim Traoré was in a secured cabinet meeting, surrounded by maps, generals, and advisors warning him not to go. Mr. President, it's a trap. It's suicide. They'll kill you. You're more valuable alive. But Traoré wasn't listening. Someone had shown him a live feed, a drone image, a crumbled village, a little girl, bleeding, alone. He stood up, took off his jacket, unstrapped his watch, handed it to his aide and said just 5 words. If she dies, I die. Against every order, every protocol, every security measure, Ibrahim Traoré boarded a military chopper himself, just him and 5 volunteer soldiers. Not as a president, not as a commander, but as a father, as a man, as a human being answering a child's cry for help. The bird touched down on the outskirts of Sampu. Smoke still lingered. Gunfire rattled in the distance. The enemy was still there. They were waiting, but Ibrahim didn't hesitate. He ran. Through the ashes, through the silence of the dead, past corpses, past bullet shells. And there, under the collapsed roof, he found her. Her eyes fluttered open. She whispered something, so faint it was almost nothing. He bent closer, and she said, "Papa?" Not knowing who he was, only knowing that someone had come, someone had cared. And in that moment, the president of a nation wept. He scooped her into his arms, blood on his sleeves. Snipers took aim at him from a nearby ridge. His men screamed for cover, but Ibrahim didn't flinch. He stood tall, holding Adama to his chest. He shouted, "If you must kill someone, kill me. But this child walks free." Bullets tore through the air. One grazed his leg, but somehow, they made it to the chopper. Adama was flown to the capital. She lived, but Ibrahim Traoré never walked the same again. Not physically, not spiritually, because part of him never left that village. Weeks later, during a televised speech, he paused, looked directly into the camera and said, "Every child in this land is my child. I do not lead with power. I lead with pain. The pain of every mother who has buried her child. The pain of every child who cries for one." And the room fell silent. Some cried, others stood, but all were changed. Today, Adama lives in safety. She draws pictures of the tall man who saved her. She still calls him Papa. And every year on her birthday, a letter arrives, signed only, "With love, from your soldier." This was the day a president became a father to a nation. This was the day Ibrahim Traoré made his last stand. Not with weapons, but with his heart. Heroes rarely cry in front of cameras. They bleed in silence. They fall where no one sees. And so, after saving Adama, after standing in front of the world as the unshakable father of a nation, Ibrahim Traoré disappeared. Not to run, not to hide, but because something inside him had shattered. 3 days after the rescue, he returned to the presidential palace. But he spoke to no one. He didn't eat. He didn't sleep. He locked himself inside his private quarters for 29 hours. When his closest advisor, Colonel Diakite, entered quietly through the back door, he found Traoré curled in a chair, still in the same shirt stained with Adama's blood. Eyes swollen, face pale, mumbling to no one. He was clutching something. Not a weapon, not a letter, Not a phone, but a tiny shoe. Adama's shoe. Torn, muddy, still wet from the rain. The president of Burkina Faso looked up with tears streaming down his face. And he whispered, "What about the others? The ones I couldn't save?" Diakite froze, because he understood. This wasn't about one child anymore. This was the weight of an entire continent crushing one man's soul. Later that evening, he went to the national cemetery. No press, no guards, just one man walking through rows of tiny graves. He knelt at one, marked only by a wooden cross. A child, unknown, forgotten by the world. And Traoré broke down. His body shook. He screamed into the earth. "I'm sorry. I wasn't fast enough. I wasn't strong enough. Forgive me." And then, silence. Only the wind responded. The next morning, something strange happened. Hundreds gathered outside the palace gates, without invitation, without announcement. Women, children, old men, veterans. Some held candles. Others held photos. Many were crying. They had felt his pain, and they had come to carry it with him. A mother stepped forward. She was holding her baby. She asked to see him, just once, just to thank him. He came out slowly, humbly. As the mother knelt to offer her child to be blessed, the crowd saw something no one expected. Traoré's hands were shaking. His eyes were filled with tears. He could barely speak, so he just pressed his lips to the baby's forehead and wept. And then, the whole crowd wept with him. This was not the image of power the world was used to. This was a new kind of leader, not armored with pride, but naked in pain, vulnerable, real, human. In his journal, found later by a staff member, he had written only one sentence that night. "May my tears water the soil until it blooms with peace." And beneath it was the drawing Adama made. Crayon lines. A sun. A tall man with a little girl in his arms. That drawing now sits in a frame, behind his desk. The public never sees it. But every time he speaks, every time his voice breaks before a crowd, he remembers, "Thank you, Papa. You came for me when no one else did." Adama. To lead is to bleed. Ibrahim Traoré. Sometimes the strongest hearts are not broken by bullets, but by silence. After the rescue, after the weeping crowds, after the moment of national unity that touched the world, the noise faded, the cameras turned away, the journalists left, and once again, the weight of the nation settled on the shoulders of one man. Ibrahim Traoré returned to his duties. Public speeches, military briefings, rebuilding what war had shattered. But inside, something had changed. He smiled less. He spoke more slowly. He looked out of windows as if expecting something or someone that never arrived. Even Adama's drawings, which once brought a flicker of light to his desk, began to fade behind unopened folders and signed death reports. One evening, as he walked alone through the palace courtyard, he overheard a conversation that froze him in place. Two senior officials, men he had trusted, were speaking in low voices. "He's become weak, emotional, soft. He's not who we need anymore. We should push him out quietly. Let the party take over before it's too late." They didn't know he was listening. He didn't confront them. He simply turned and walked deeper into the dark. That night, he didn't sleep. He sat at his desk, staring at the photo of Adama, a glass of untouched water beside him. And then he picked up his pen and began writing a letter. But not to the nation, not to the government, not to the world. It was a letter to his mother, a woman long gone, buried beneath red earth in the village where he was born. And in it he wrote, "Mama, I don't know if I am still the man you raised. I don't know if I've lost myself, or if this nation is just too wounded to hold. I thought I could save them all. But maybe I was wrong. I'm tired, Mama. Tired of funerals. Tired of smiling while bleeding. Tired of pretending I don't feel every cry, every loss, every little hand slipping through mine. Tell me, do real leaders ever cry?" When the palace staff found him the next morning, he was still there, still seated, still holding the pen. But this time, something was different. His pulse had weakened. His body was trembling. And in his hand was a crushed photo of Adama. Doctors rushed in. He was rushed to a secured wing of the military hospital. Severe exhaustion, dehydration, a partial collapse of the nervous system brought on by weeks of suppressed trauma. For 48 hours, Ibrahim Traoré drifted between consciousness and coma. And during those hours, the nation waited. No speeches, no updates, no messages, just prayers. A child held a candle in front of the palace. Dozens joined her. Hundreds followed. Soon, across the streets of Burkina Faso, cities stood still. Markets closed. Traffic paused. Villagers huddled around radios in silence. The man who had stood for everyone was now the one lying down. And then, just as the third night broke, he opened his eyes. The first face he saw was hers. Adama. She stood at the foot of his bed, holding the same drawing he once kept behind his desk. Only now it had changed. She had added herself holding his hand, and written in broken French, "Don't leave me, Papa." He broke down. Tears rolled down his face, and he whispered, "I never will." 1 month later, Traoré returned to office, but not as the same man. This time, he no longer hid the pain. He let it show. He spoke openly about the struggle, about trauma, about grief. And in doing so, something remarkable happened. The people trusted him more, because they no longer saw a perfect president. They saw a real man, flawed, broken, bleeding, but still standing. And standing for them. They say the heart of a warrior beats loudest in battle, but the heart of a leader beats in silence, in hospital beds, in graveyards, in empty rooms where no applause is heard, in letters never sent, in tears never shown. Ibrahim Traoré walked through fire not once, but over and over again. And each time he didn't return as the same man. He returned smaller in flesh, but bigger in soul. Because leadership, in the end, is not about glory. It's about pain. And the choice to carry it, even when it breaks you,